Good morning. John Gilkison here. I wanted to shoot a video today on this video that was released recently for Earth Day, Planet of Humans. And Michael Moore had his name stamped on it, although it was produced by Jeff Gibbs. And I agreed with about half the movie, and the other half I disagreed with. So, and I thought it caused a lot of damage by passing out misinformation on renewables and so forth. So, I think it needs a bit of rebuttal. Now, I didn't take notes throughout the whole movie, so I'm just going to shoot this from recollection. I don't have a script here, so here we are. I watched the movie a couple days ago, and it upset me because of this stuff. Just by way of introduction, we have 5.1 kilowatts of solar, and El Paso Electric pays us 6 cents a kilowatt hour, I believe. And this month we're getting $134 from El Paso Electric. Now that's for 2 months. That's not 1 month. The most we've ever seen is close to $90 in one given month. And April's one of our best months because it's a shoulder season. But last month in March we got $49.98. And this was 2 cents shy of them paying us, because they don't pay until you reach $50. So they added it to this month's, and it came to $134 and some change. So we'd be the first to tell you that solar really works. We have a PHEV, and we charge it. We have a very energy efficient house, which is why only 5 kilowatts of solar works really well for us, because we did a lot of load avoidance or energy efficiency, load shedding, whatever you want to call it. Also, I worked for New Mexico State University for 24 years, and for 15 of those years we had a 4.1 megawatt jet turbine. And all the time I was working there, 15 years, they had to replace the engine on it twice. Of course, this is routine. I think every 5 years or so they replace the engine. And so fossil fuels aren't that great either. I mean, they need maintenance. They need refurbishment. They don't last forever. And that was one of the things that really pissed me off about this movie, Planet of Humans, was they kind of implied that renewables, they, like in one instance they said, oh, these solar panels only last 8 years. Well, that's false. They'll last about 30. And batteries, oh, they only last a few years, and then they got 3 years, like for example they said, and they have to be replaced and thrown in a landfill. Well, that's not true. Batteries, an electric car can last for 20 years or more, and then they find second life in stationary applications. So a lot of their information was just completely out of date. And then they kind of implied that wind turbines are the same things. They don't last. They catch on fire, and mountaintop removal was their big deal. You have to put a few of them on a mountaintop in Vermont, and they had to take some trees off the mountaintop, and so it was no better than coal because it was mountaintop removal. Well, I mean, these are anecdotes, and they don't all have to be wind turbines don't have to be installed on mountaintops in Vermont. As a matter of fact, the best place to put wind turbines is in this central United States, and this whole area runs all the way from Minnesota down through Texas. That's our wind corridor, and that's where you want to put this stuff. And that's where we need grid improvements in order to access this power and ship it to distant markets. But the implication of this movie was oh, well, they have to make all these things out of raw materials. They have to use aluminum and cobalt and copper. And well, what the hell do you think they make fossil fuel infrastructure out of? They have to use cement and aluminum and steel and copper for all this fossil fuel stuff. So how in the hell are you supposed to make renewable like wind and solar? I mean, almost the implication was is it has to be magical. They have to make them out of unicorn farts or something. I don't know. I just didn't get it. Renewables are one of the pathways forward that we have, and to say that they still rely on fossil fuel infrastructure is just a false canard. That's like going back to 1907 to the Ford plant, Henry Ford, and saying, why, these internal combustion engine cars you're building in this plant are no good because all your deliveries to the plant are by horse-drawn wagons. Well, yes, they lived in a world of horse-drawn transportation when they were introducing cars. And today, with wind and solar and other renewables, we live in a fossil fuel era still. However, as time goes on, more and more renewable energy is going to be used to build these things. So I just didn't get it. It's like the makers of this movie really just didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't understand energy issues. They didn't understand applied efficiency, and they didn't understand EORIs, how the energy return on the energy invested is high for fossil fuels now. And the only reason fossil fuels can get away with a lower EORI is that they have to, we totally discount the externalities. I mean, to make a fossil fuel plant as carbon neutral as a renewable production facility would cost a ton of money. The EORI would be out the window. And yet that's what they want to point to. You automatically, with solar and wind, you automatically get no carbon emissions, no air pollution. And to clean up fossil fuels takes a ton of money and infrastructure. And this is the reason they don't do it. And the other thing that fossil fuels promote is energy inefficiency. It's such an energy-dense fuel source that nobody cares how much energy you're wasting. You witness this in cars and trucks for sure. You know, electric cars can get routinely over 100 miles per gallon equivalent. And there is no fossil fuel cars that can do this. And just for example, just to refine a gallon of gasoline, in the whole process of pumping stuff around, they use at least 4 or 5 kilowatt hours of energy just for pumping at a refinery. And 4 or 5 kilowatt hours can run an electric car 15 to 20 miles, depending on what car it is. A Tesla for sure could probably run it about 20 miles. And that's just the electricity used to refine 1 gallon of gas. And then there was this big deal about cobalt a while back, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, people discovered that they use more cobalt in refining gasoline than you could ever hope to imagine using in electric car batteries. And they just want to cherry pick problems or instances that renewables don't add up to a good investment or a good idea. And for example, they had an Earth Day thing here, and they was grilling Bill McKibben, who I don't care for. I'm not a fan of Bill McKibben or Al Gore. And I think many of the points the movies made were right about these two guys. I think they're sold out. But on the other hand, they went backstage and they found out that they had a bunch of solar panels back there, and they had to have diesel generators to back them up. So they only had 8% efficient solar panels. And nowadays, you can get a solar panel, there's large ones now made that produce 400 watts of output. And the other thing is they made a big deal about the fact that renewables were intermittent. So they're intermittent. They flatten the highest part of the duck curve, solar does especially, and wind can help flatten the night low. And the problem with wind and solar and renewables is when they are intermittent, we need storage. And batteries are coming on like gangbusters. They really are. They apparently didn't know about the Hornsdale facility down in Australia, which Elon Musk installed, and Tesla. That's saved the electric utility down there, which apparently is French owned, hundreds of millions of dollars in avoided generating capacity cost. So just storage by itself is tearing up fossil fuel needs. If we had enough storage, we can simply get rid of spinning reserve. But these people don't understand anything about any of these kinds of things or issues, and they make a movie which tries to leave you with the impression that solar and wind and renewable energy is a bad idea and it's all supported by fossil fuel infrastructure and we're wasting our time with it. And they give you no pathway forward. There is no pathway forward with them. All you can do is continue to use fossil fuels because you know these things are no good and they're wrong. And this is a wrong message to put out. The biggest thing they attacked, which I agreed with, was biomass and the use of whole forests, cutting down trees to burn in power plants to generate electricity. I don't think biomass ought to be used for primary electrical generation. I think biomass ought to be reserved for home heating, residential home heating at that. And that's it. And that's where it makes sense on a small scale application like that. As long as you have a home that's well insulated, which we do. We have a pellet stove and we go through about 38 bags in the winter, which we've cut our propane bills in half. And at this scale, pellets can be made from recycled lumber. Just the waste from home building alone would support a good pellet industry. So those are my thoughts. And then they ended up with the movie that at the end they had dead orangutans. Someone was giving the movie 4 dead orangutans as a joke. But they're showing these orangutans in a tree in Malaysia, I take it, someplace. Wherever the last place is for orangutans. I'm not a biologist, so. But this has nothing to do at all with biomass. This is palm oil. That's what they're cutting down these trees in Malaysia and these other places for, is producing palm oil. It's not renewable power generation, which they can do. I don't know all the details about this, but we shouldn't be doing this. And the major point of the movie I totally agreed with. Yes, human numbers, we're overrunning the planet. And my major point has been all along is if we could reduce our carbon emissions and other emissions by, let's say, 90%, and we reduce the human population by 90%, that would leave 10% emissions and only 10% of the population left to emit. You've reduced emissions by a factor of 100. And this is the way to go. Yes, renewables aren't going to save us if we continue growing the economy and growing the world population beyond 7.7 billion people where it is now. I understand all this. But to attack renewables, which is one thing that can help us in the near term, is just wrong. Totally wrong-headed. And I'm really sorry to see Michael Moore put his name on this, and that's the reason he has his name on it, so the movie would sell. And it tells me a lot about Michael Moore. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about either, at least when it comes to energy issues and renewables. So I'm going to leave it there. As you can see, I'm pissed. Bonnie's pissed right here. She didn't like that movie either. That's what she tells me. Oh, Bunny. Oh, Bunny. Yeah. Uh-oh. Don't get me. I got to stop this movie. Bye-bye, everybody.